You have told me in the past, I do expect that the probe is going to expose me to some type of action at some point. But you never expected what happened at your home this morning. Tell me about that.
Well, first of all, I always said that there could be some process crime.
Yes.
There's still no evidence whatsoever that I had advanced knowledge of the topic, the subject, or the source of the WikiLeaks disclosures. I never received any of the WikiLeaks disclosures. I never communicated with Assange or WikiLeaks other than the limited communication on Twitter direct message, which I gave to the House Intelligence Committee last September, I guess it was. On the other hand, I don't have a valid passport, either that or it's about to expire in a few days. I have no previous record. I do not own a firearm. I am not violent. And there was no need to have 29 FBI agents with assault weapons and sidearms and hand grenades and a battering ram to smash in my front door. They could simply have called my attorney and I would have surrendered voluntarily. My wife is deaf. She was in an upstairs bedroom. I had a concern that she did not know what was going on and could be shot or injured. My dogs are not dangerous. They're tiny, although they were terrorized. So when you don't have evidence, you use theatrics. I think this was an overreaction. And the real proof of it is the judge only hours later gave me a $250,000 surety bond on my own signature. So if you're a flight risk, they wouldn't do that. And
well,
as far
as
he
released you on your own recognizance, he didn't have to give you any bond. But when you say there's no proof, I don't want to dig into the merits. I know the legal counsel you've been given, and I understand it. I'm actually surprised they have you out at all. But when you say they have no proof, Roger, to be honest with you, I have not seen an indictment connected to this probe that has more proof than this one does of communications that you have had that prove that you didn't tell the truth to the Congress, the congressional panel you were before.
False. Every one of those things is out of context. If you go to my website, Stone Cold Truth, or watch any of my interviews, I have actually refuted virtually everything in there. And then there's a bunch of things in there that, frankly, I don't believe are true. No senior campaign official told me to find out anything about WikiLeaks. That doesn't mean Mr. Mueller can't induce somebody to say that, but there'll be no corroboration for it. And no other person in the campaign who's a junior official inquired of what happened. Now, what I did hear from Steve Bannon the day after Assange had a press event on October 1st as to what he said, I responded with two matters of public record. Politico had already reported that he said there would be releases every week for the next following weeks, and that all the U.S. related campaign or election-related material would be released in the weeks before the election.
So the only communication you had with the campaign,
security
just to be clear, Roger, to allow you to respond directly to what's in the indictment, if you're comfortable doing so, you're saying the only communication you ever had with anybody related to the campaign was this one communication you're talking about with Steve Bannon that you're saying is already public information.
It was published by the Times, and I responded to it in great written detail.
So that's
my response to him is entirely public information.
And that was the only communication
you had? And by the way, he didn't respond. That's the only one that I the only one that I can find in my emails. I never discussed this with Donald Trump. So speculation tonight by Wolf Blitzer, by Preet Bharara, by others that Trump directed me to do this or directed someone to direct me to do this. Speculation in the Washington Post that I ever discussed this. Chuck Todd asked me about this on Meet the Press a year ago. I told him no.
That's
George
still your answer.
Stephanopoulos asked me about it several weeks ago. I said, no, it's still my answer.
So
Donald Trump
there's a
and I
100% chance in your mind that nobody can offer any compelling, credible proof that Donald Trump knew about your efforts to get to WikiLeaks.
Nobody can supply any corroborated truth. People can have their testimony composed, particularly if they're looking for a reduction in their sentence. But there is no proof here. Many of these things in the indictment I have already addressed and rebutted in great documented detail. And I have a pretty good idea, even though I have 1 million emails and I have never deleted anything whatsoever. But the idea that they need evidence, they've been in my email, my text messages, my phone calls for 2 years. They have read them to my various associates before the grand jury. The New York Times reported on January 20th that I was under 617, that I was under surveillance.
But that's why I'm wondering why you denied any of these things. You had to know they were surveilling you and they could get your communications. When they were talking to you and asking you if you'd been talking to Credico and you said, no, I've never communicated with them, didn't you know that they'd be monitoring your communications and they'd get you the way they did?
Here's the irony of that. The text messages that were in an old cell phone, which I did not recall, are entire exculpatory. They prove that he was my source, that, as I said, and he has denied, which MSNBC has allowed him to do repeatedly, and that his source was a WikiLeaks lawyer. So yes, I did honestly forget a series of text messages which prove that I was telling the truth.
But even the ones that you were having during the testimony, the same day, that's the one that really kind of jumps the shark. I mean, that they're saying, have you ever spoken to him about it? You say, no, you were talking to him that day. Again, I don't want to dig into the facts with you because I'm respecting your legal counsel.
I don't even. First of all, I don't even know that that's true. But as far as Frank Patangeli is concerned, Mr. Credico is an impressionist. That's what he does, and he does a very funny Frank Patangela imitation. Certainly not an implication that he should kill himself or that he should lie.
But you did tell him that he shouldn't testify, he should plead the fifth, don't turn anything over to them. That's why they're coming after you for tampering.
Context. I
Please.
think all of those text messages need to be seen in some context.
Okay.
And when they're seen in context, they will see that they're lighthearted, they're not serious.
The only other thing that came up that was, I thought, kind of a bright line distinction was that they were asking you, well, who are you talking to? Who was helping you? Why didn't you want to mention Corsi? Why did you only want to mention Credico? Jerome Corsi says everything in the indictment is true, but why didn't you want to mention him? You would have saved yourself a lot of trouble.
Yeah, but first of all, Mr. Corsi has said a number of things that are not true. Firstly, that a memo that he prepared for me regarding the Podesta's extensive and lucrative business dealings is some part of a cover-up. Covering up what? He never told me that John Podesta's emails had been stolen. There is no corroboration or evidence in writing that proves that. That comes from his memory. He told Chucker Carlson, he told many people. He told Ari Melber, he told everyone he knew. Name one. He certainly didn't tell me, and there's no proof that he did.
But even if he was fabricating all that stuff, Roger, you do have the communications between the two of you. Mueller seems to have proof of it.
In all honesty, I don't believe he was ever in touch with WikiLeaks, and the prognostications he made regarding WikiLeaks on August 2nd all turn out to be incorrect. I don't believe that he had any idea what he was talking about.
So here's the question: has nothing to do.
And he was not a campaign official. So they're trying to criminalize
definitely wasn't a campaign official.
And they're trying to criminalize legitimate, either journalistic or political inquiry. I don't think that's reasonable.
Well, they're getting you for lying about it. They're not saying that the underlying actions were criminal. They're saying that you lied about it to Congress, and they have the proof on paper. So the question I have is, forget about the merits. Why put yourself out there like this, Roger? You had a chance to change the testimony. Why would you even talk to them in the first place and put yourself at this jeopardy?
As you know, perjury requires both materiality and intent. There is none. But secondarily, where's the Russian collusion, Chris? Where's the WikiLeaks collaboration? Where's the evidence that I received anything from WikiLeaks or Julian Assange and passed it on to Donald Trump or the Trump campaign?
Well, look,
simply does not exist.
I agree with you on those bases. And again, I keep qualifying this because I want to keep my word. And I told you in counsel I wouldn't dig into the merits on this. But the argument would be the coordination is you're trying to find out what's happening. You're telling the campaign so that they, as Corsi was suggesting to you and maybe others, they could coordinate their message to synchronize what they were saying as the WikiLeaks got dumped. And that's why you were trying to find out if they had any more dirt about Hillary Clinton to help your friend in a campaign that you've believed in for a very long time. That might not be a crime, maybe not, but it is collusion.
But I wasn't doing that, and I will prove that at trial.
And you have said a couple of things already that are important for people. 100%, you never talked to the president about it. You don't believe he knew anything about it. Now, address people's skepticism. He's known you the longest, okay? He's got the deepest relationship with you, second only to Paul Manafort in terms of the population of this campaign, who, of course, you introduced him to, and you suggested him once again to help with the campaign. Why would people believe that his oldest, most trusted advisor was doing something like this for him at the same time that he kept talking up WikiLeaks, and yet he knew nothing about it?
Well, first of all, he can read, he can watch television, and this was getting an enormous amount of coverage. And any suggestion that we did discuss it would be conjecture, would be supposition. But there's no evidence to that effect. And first of all, when you talk to Donald Trump on the phone, in all honesty, he does most of the talking, you do most of the listening. We just never discussed this topic